Good morning. Today we gather to honor and remember the lives lost and the heroes who emerged during the tragic events of September 11th, 2001, 24 years ago. As a school community, it is important that we reflect on the resilience, unity, and compassion that followed that day. We are here to ensure that the lessons of kindness, courage, and strength are never forgotten. Together, let us think about those who were effective and to reflect on the importance of coming together in times of adversity.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the
Never forget, every year on this day of remembrance, that is what we are called to do. Today marks 24 years since the deaths of almost 3,000 people in what is known as one of the most despicable attacks in American history. Business people, law enforcement and firefighters, tourists, mothers, fathers, spouses, sons, daughters, and friends. On that fateful Tuesday morning, so many lives were cut short, and the American people were left frightened, angry, and anguished. But amidst that pain, America united in devastation to mourn that loss, and slowly, over time, that searing pain faded into a scar. Memorials and museums were erected to honor the dead, articles and novels were published, movies and documentaries filmed, and ultimately, the memory of that day was preserved by those who experienced it. Most of us, my peers included, were born into a post-9/11 world. We don't intimately know a time or a version of America that existed before it. Yet for so many Americans, there was a shift, an irreversible change in American identity. The devastating events of September 11th aren't simply a past historical event for these people. That day is a constant reminder of not only great loss, but of a permanent shift in their perception of the world.
James E. Dobson grew up in Astoria, Queens. A married man with 2 grown children, he had worked as an ambulance paramedic since he was 19 years old. After Dobson and his partner received a radio call that a plane had hit the World Trade Center, they made their way to the 59th Street Bridge leading to Manhattan. When he first arrived, no one was moving. In an interview later, he remarked, because the fire was 1.5 miles up in the sky, no one realized they were in danger. Dobson worked valiantly that day to save and treat the wounded, making several trips in an ambulance to deliver them to hospitals. Working side by side with rescue firemen, he saved many lives. I said, "You just go back in and get more people," he recounted, talking about the firemen. And these are the kind of things that bother you, because I'm sending them back to their deaths. We didn't know that at the time, and they would have went back in anyways. Dobson went right back to work after September 11th, but things had changed. A new threat started appearing every day. Deaths were still unknown and unmentioned. His anger at the world became difficult to manage. He was diagnosed with PTSD and depression and is seeing a therapist. Since that day, James E. Dobson has found it very hard to go to work.
Mary Lee Hanel grew up in upstate New York. She started working for the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey after college. The Port Authority, which owned the World Trade Center, was headquartered in the North Tower. She worked on the 66th floor. Her husband also worked in the building. A woman on Hanel's floor saw the plane strike the tower, prompting an immediate evacuation. The stairwell filled up and a long descent to the ground began. One of Hanel's coworkers had severe asthma. Another had been burned. Everyone was afraid. What we were doing is keeping up a dialogue, joking around, laughing, reassuring people, she explained. Whatever it took to keep people moving. On the 27th floor, a man sat in his wheelchair, not allowing anyone to carry him down. Firemen began to pass Hanel and her coworkers on their way up the stairs, and she told them about the man, but he did not make it out of the building. The stairway was crowded, but people kept moving in an orderly fashion. There was never ever, for one moment, a thought that the building was going to collapse, said Hanel. Only when she stepped outside did she realize the true extent of the damage. Hanel and her husband made it home to their 3 young children. In the months that followed, they answered countless questions and had several difficult conversations with their daughter, who was still learning the concepts of death and grief. The attacks consumed her thoughts for a long time.
Maria Georgina Lopez Zombrano immigrated to the United States in 1967 at the age of 25. Later in life, she developed a retinal detachment that impaired her vision, and with help from Commission for the Blind, she secured a position as a food vendor across the street from the World Trade Center. When the first plane struck, Lopez described what she heard and felt at the scene. It was just a big moment. I don't know how to call it. Everything trembling, it sounded like a storm, she said. A woman nearby wailed with grief after learning that her son had just died inside the tower. Rooted in her place near the vending stand, Lopez only moved when 3 ladies led her away, holding their hands to help her keep her pace alongside them. She took in the commotion, listening as people screamed when balls of dust and smoke descended, and feeling the crunch of glass beneath her boots. She started to panic, not knowing how she would get back to Queens. Eventually, Lopez came across a friend, and together, they walked across the bridge and back home. She had to leave behind her bag and her stand, but the bag was returned to her shortly. She was not allowed to work at her stand again until late October. Lopez felt hopeless that day, and even if it was temporary, she still lost the possessions and sense of routine that she treasured before the attacks. She still has nightmares about that helpless feeling.
There are many stories from that day that cannot or will not ever be told, and we honor the memories of those that we lost. But the stories you've heard today, along with countless others, represent those people. The vast range of personal accounts we have of those who experienced this day create a cohesive narrative of bravery and tragedy woven by countless individual stories in New York City, at the Pentagon, in Shanksville, Pennsylvania, and across America. The morning of September 11th, the sky was blue. It inspired a mural in the 9/11 Memorial and Museum made up of small tiles in hundreds of shades of blue. That mural exists because no 2 people described quite the same shade, but they all remembered a blue sky. Everyone faced their own version of a national tragedy that day. They all had a different experience, but no one will forget what they endured. These stories, these survivors, American citizens in general, carry on the memory and significance of September 11th merely by recalling and retelling the circumstances of the stories of the circumstances they personally faced. They are the ones who make sure we don't forget, living reminders that despite the loss, despite the way the pain shapes us, we unite and we carry on. To conclude, let us have a moment of silence to honor those that we lost.
I wanted to take a quick moment to express my heartfelt thanks to our Humanities Academy senior students, Alex, Charlie, Eli, Cal, and Cameron, for sharing those powerful stories from survivors of 9/11. I also want to thank Ms. Neal's chorus students, Sasha and Tanya, for singing at today's event, and our ASL 2, 3, and 4 classes for participating in our silent yet strong choir. Thank you, Louis Franco, for accompanying our moment of silence with your musical talent. Finally, thank you to teachers and our staff for taking time out of your day to be a part of this very important occasion. Students, we are going to remain here until the bell rings at 9:57. Teachers, please stay with your students until the bell rings, and thank you for honoring this very, very important day in our nation's history. take a quick moment to express my heartfelt thanks to our Humanities Academy senior students, Alex, Charlie, Eli, Cal, and Cameron, for sharing those powerful stories from survivors of 9/11. I also want to thank Ms. Neal's core students, Sasha and Tanya, for singing at today's event, and our ASL 2, 3, and 4 classes for participating in our silent yet strong